Hello, fellow yappers. I'm Ruchi.
And I'm Shalini, and we're your hosts of Binge, Yap, Repeat.
We're two best friends who spend an embarrassing amount of time binge watching TV, and honestly, we just need to talk about it. If you're here, we're guessing you do too.
Fair warning, this is a spoiler-friendly zone. We will be discussing lots of spoilers. So, if you haven't watched the show yet, hit pause, go binge, and come back when you're ready to yap with us.
And now, it's yap time.
What is up, Yappy Gang? These are your founding mothers, Shalini and Ruchi, with Binge, Yap, Repeat.
So close. So close.
Basically nailed it.
Because actually it would work with our podcast name because we would be a binge, yap, repeat. Yeah.
Repetitive and redundant. It's
Oh my
repetitive
God.
and redundant.
I was just listening to that episode today and I got to that part and I was like, I stand by my statements. Cool. Yeah. So if you haven't guessed, we're talking today about Call Her Alex, the 2-part documentary miniseries, I guess. It's only 2 hours about Call Her Daddy, the sex comedy advice turned celebrity interview podcast hosted by Alex Cooper.
Yes. And just for some context, so I have been listening to Call Her Daddy for the last, I would say, 3 years. So kind of just as she transitioned into celebrity interviews and away from kind of life and sex advice. And Ruchi, what is your background with Call Her Daddy? Have you ever listened to a Call Her Daddy episode?
I am baby daddy. I am like level 1. I peripherally know about Alex Cooper and Call Her Daddy. So I haven't been able to escape the social media clips around Call Her Daddy. So I definitely do see a lot of clips from her interviewing famous celebrities. Sometimes she interviews people who I'm like, I have no idea who this person is, but apparently they have some like crazy lore behind them. But yeah, very, very peripheral, very tangential. So I am excited to have this conversation today.
Nice.
Okay, yeah. So Call Her Alex offers a behind-the-scenes look at Cooper's career as she grew from a 24-year-old woman with a sex and dating podcast to the CEO of a media empire in just 6 years. So the documentary series premiered on June 10th, 2025 on Hulu. And for those of you who don't know or didn't know, like me, Call Her Daddy is, I guess, started out as an advice and comedy podcast co-hosted by Alex Cooper and Sofia Franklin in 2018. Call Her Daddy now is hosted by just Alex Cooper, who does the celebrity interviews. So actually that was one of my questions, is like how she actually transitioned from doing the sex and the dating stuff at the very beginning to just doing her solo vlog style episodes to now doing these celebrity interviews.
So I guess they covered this a little bit in the docuseries, but so she started this podcast with Sofia Franklin, her roommate, with the intent of kind of locker room talk for women. And so I think, yeah, initially it was intended to be this very sexual content and just talking about sex, blowjob advice, all of that stuff. And then, I mean, I like to think that the podcast grew up with her, where, as she transitioned from her early 20s into her late 20s, it was more about like, this is how my life has been going. I want to share these experiences with you. And then, of course, when she super blew up, then her first celebrity guest was Miley Cyrus. And Alex said that Miley was one of the first ones that viewed this podcast as an interview platform. So if I recall, back in 2022, a lot of the content she talked about, even with her guests, was kind of salacious still and sexual and just like about their dating lives and stuff. And then it's made this really slow, and they said this in the docuseries as well, very natural brand transition from that to what it is today, which is just interviews about celebrities of any type.
I guess like one of the main reasons why I asked it is, especially in the podcasting space or in the social media space, when you're starting out, it's so important to achieve product market fit, right? So like to know what resonates with your audience and to just keep doing that same thing. That's how you get that initial growth. So it's so interesting that Call Her Daddy is so big in spite of going through so many fundamental shifts in the strategy, like a sex podcast to advice to celebrity like those are three very different shifts.
Yeah.
So I think it's just crazy that it's grown to be as big as it is.
That's such a good point. It actually reminds me a lot of Taylor Swift's journey in her career, starting as a country music artist and then making this huge shift into pop, hoping that her fans would come along with her and enjoy her new content. And turns out they did, and she just kind of kept capitalizing on that and just built her fan base up even more, because she wasn't just giving her fans what she knew they liked. She was like, okay, let me try to reinvent everything I'm doing. And I feel like Alex went through a similar thing where she was like, okay, I don't want to lose my current fan base, but I want to grow the podcast. I want this podcast to evolve away from just sex advice. How do I do this? And yeah, so I think it's really impressive. I totally agree. It's so hard to shift something that does have such a great product market fit, was clearly like incredibly successful, getting acquired by Barstool Sports after the, what was it, the third episode or something.
Yeah.
And just basically like grew in the charts up to the number 2 spot under the Joe Rogan Experience in a matter of months. That's so crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And so I think they had some metric in the docuseries where they were saying by 1 month, she had like 12,000 followers or something like that in the first month of Call Her Daddy, which is crazy, right? But then they
Crazy
also,
when you compare it to us.
we have way less than 12,000. Let's put it this way, we've been around for twice as long, and we have
Just, I'd say less than 2 times as much as she had. Also less than half
yeah,
as much.
also less than half as much.
Excuse me, of what they had, she and Sofia. Because back then it was
True.
both of them.
True, yes. Uh yeah, so I thought like that was a pretty crazy figure. But then in the documentary, they also talked about how Alex was a self-proclaimed insta-ho as well as a YouTuber. So I'm pretty sure Alex probably did have a really sizable following before she started doing the podcast. So it kind of makes sense
Yeah.
that they had like a boosted friends and family number to kind of go
Yeah.
off of.
Just kind of transitioning her fan base from YouTube to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever it was that she started
Barstool
on.
Sports.
Barstool Sports, correct.
Yes, yeah. Okay, and then the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the whole Alex and Sophia fallout, because I think even though I'm kind of looking at Call Her Daddy from the outside, that was the one thing that I actually did know about beforehand. And I was like, oh, how did it go from 2 hosts to 1 host? Sounds kind of like there's drama or there's spice around that. And then I actually thought that the docuseries would spend a lot of time talking about it, but they really did not. It was 2 minutes of like, Sophia was there, and then she wasn't. And then that's that. I was like,
Yeah,
what?
they kind of just painted it as they were already drifting as friends, and then when the time came to renew the contract, Alex was in and Sophia was out. And I don't think that's how it went down, from what I've read.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think in the documentary they said that they wanted to renegotiate the contract. David Portnoy, who is the owner of Barstool Sports, told them that they would get an increase of like some hundred thousands of dollars. I don't remember the exact number, and they would also get ownership of their IP after a certain amount of years. And then Alex was like, that sounds like a great deal. I want to take it. Sofia said, I don't think we should. And then as a result of that difference, Sofia walked. That was what was said in the docuseries. Shalini, what's the tea?
Okay, so most of my knowledge comes from Reddit. um, but you know, where else are we going to find the tea? So I'm just going to read it word for word because I think how they laid it out was really good. So Frontbench 5406 says, the podcast was maybe the fastest growing one ever. It went from nothing to being regularly matching Joe Rogan for downloads in the span of months. Alex had the relationship with the industry and got the show going. It started with both of them. Due to the show going so big so soon, their contracts were seen as not fair. So they said this in the podcast, they were each making like 70K plus bonuses. They got raises after the first year, and Alex, who was also editing the show, which a lot of people credit as one of its biggest successes, because they mentioned this in the docuseries, she edited it very much like a vlog and not like traditional podcasting. Okay, anyway. The fractures really started here as the money they were getting was becoming an issue. They were being underpaid by Barstool, who owned the show. Alex, while they got initial raises, this person says, I think 250K each plus bonuses. I don't know how true that is. Alex got a bump also by asking Barstool for an extra bump since she edited the show too. She did not tell Sofia about it. So
Whoa.
That's where the chasm started. So, meanwhile, the show is growing wildly. Sofia has started dating an HBO executive who is telling them they are not getting anywhere near enough money. So he starts trying to help them get another deal, I think outside of
Even with
Barstool.
the 250,000?
Correct. He's like, you guys should be
Whoa.
making millions or something.
Whoa.
Then the pandemic happens, and during this time, the girls stop doing the show while they're trying to break their contract with Barstool. The negotiations drag on. The show is off for like 2 months. Barstool really needed the show as it was by far their largest show. The pandemic has cut their revenue massively. And Dave Portnoy also said this. He was like, they were paying a lot of the Barstool salaries at this point. Barstool offers them an insane deal that lets them only do the show for 12 more months, which shortens their contract and lets them keep the IP for the show, the name and all of the stuff created within the show. So this is also something Alex mentions in the docuseries. I think this is the point when Alex was like, this is a deal of a lifetime. We work for Barstool for 12 more months, and then we get to keep Call Her Daddy. And then Sofia did not want to take it for 12 more months. I guess she wanted to leave faster than that because her HBO boyfriend was like, you guys deserve way more than this.
I see. And so, wait, so the strategy from Barstool is basically like, we know you're gonna leave, but give us 12 months of runway and keep paying our bills for those 12 months, and then we'll cut you loose.
Yeah, I think so. That must have been their perspective. They're like, okay, we can't keep up. Obviously, they know we're underpaying them. We probably can't afford how much they deserve to be paid, but let's try to hold on to them for 1 more year. We'll figure out something else. We'll find new revenue streams or something.
Got it. That makes sense.
So by this point, the fracture from the girls is Sofia seems to, no matter what, want to get out of the contract because her boyfriend is really committed to it professionally. Despite the insane offer from Barstool, she keeps denying any offer and asking for more. During this, some shady things happen. Their contract is leaked, which likely could only have been done from Sofia's side. Their lawyer seems to be frustrated by their lack of agreement. Sofia seems to bring up questions like if she stayed on and got fired, would they still get the IP, etc. Eventually, this breaks, so Alex takes the deal from Barstool, which anyone would have done when they were offered the IP for only 12 months more of work. Sofia then basically disappeared for a while before starting her thing. Alex started doing the contract and then got the mega contract with Spotify because the show was still growing, etc. Yeah. So I do think this Reddit post was written by an Alex stan. So I guess take it with a grain of salt. The other comments said that Sofia kind of told her side of the story on her own podcast, which is Sofia with a F. And then she also was a guest star on an episode of Uncut. But it also sounds like she doesn't really deny anything that Alex claims in any of these podcasts. She's just trying to tell her side of the story. And it seems like her side of the story is really defending the fact that her boyfriend convinced her to do all of this. And she is like, I was never influenced by a man. That seems to be the hill she's dying on in all of these things. Granted, I've not listened to the podcast, so I can't say for sure. But from what I can read on Reddit, it seems like that's what she's fixating on, not the stuff with Alex, which is interesting.
So do they not talk anymore, Alex and Sophia? Or are they just like not friends?
I would assume they're not really friends anymore. I guess they weren't really
Friends
friends
to
to
begin
begin
with.
with. They were just kind of roommates. And I thought it was really funny that they decided to include the audio clip of Sophia being like, I'm just here to ride Alex's coattails, I guess. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's such a strategic move.
Yeah, that was shady, I thought. It was
Hmm.
like, okay, it's like very obvious what agenda they're pushing here, but it's like not even an attempt to be fair, but whatever. I guess that's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, so I don't know how true that is. Yappers, if you know any more than we do, definitely write in, comment below on the episode, or email us at what is it? hello@bingeyapperpete.com,
Yeah.
and we can include your comment in an oopsie doopsie in our future episodes. But yeah, so I knew, kind of like you, I think I knew that it started with two people. Now it's just Alex. I knew that there was some beef, but I had no idea what the real story was. So I think the docuseries gave kind of a window into what happened, but definitely made Alex seem like more of a hero than she was, I think.
For sure. I think the way that they spun the story was Alex was always a character and a personality, and she was always good at producing and editing. And then, oh, her editing skills took her all this way. So she's actually the meat and potatoes behind Call Her Daddy. So when Sophia walked, it was fine. That was definitely the story they spun.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I guess this is what happened. Um, Okay, interesting. So if Alex is the editor behind Call Her Daddy, does that make you the Alex Cooper of this podcast and I'm the
Look out,
Sophia?
Ruchi. I'm the meat and potatoes.
Ruchi with an R?
And you can call me Mother.
Oh my God. Oh, okay,
Um,
interesting.
yeah.
Speaking of being influenced by a man or husband, how did you feel about Alex's relationship with her husband? I forgot his name.
Matt Kaplan.
Matt Kaplan. Yes.
Yeah, so I've heard a lot about their relationship from her podcast. I'll be honest, I did not know he was a businessman working full time for Call Her Daddy or for Unwell. I thought he was still, because I think he was some sort of media producer or something when they met. They met through a business meeting. And I thought still had his own job. But I think it makes sense that he works full time for is it for Unwell or is it for Call Her Daddy?
Unclear. I feel like
Okay.
it would be Unwell. I can look it up really quickly.
Okay.
What the hell? Is this the right? What the hell?
Okay.
He is a film producer. He produced young adult films, including the To All the Boys film series.
Oh,
Yeah, we know that. Wow.
I didn't know he produced To All the Boys.
Yeah.
Oh, he's 41. I didn't know their age gap was that big.
And he dated Ashley Olsen.
What?
Yes, of Mary Kate and Ashley fame.
Crazy.
And then he also married Australian actress Claire Holt, but filed for divorce a day before their anniversary.
He was married before he married Alex?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, they were engaged March 2023, and then they married on April 6, 2024.
Wow. Wait, he and Alex.
He and Alex, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was like, wait, I thought she met him in 2021. Okay.
Yeah, but they don't say anything about like what he does for Alex Cooper. This is just like his
Yeah, that
film.
was news to me that he works for Call Her Daddy.
Yeah, none of these things. They say that he's the founder and CEO of Ace Entertainment, a top-tier entertainment company focused on feature film, whatever, but they don't say anything
Hmm.
about Call Her Daddy.
Interesting. All right, well, maybe we'll never know. I don't remember what they said in the docuseries about his role. I don't think it was CEO, but it was something like head of business for Call Her Daddy
Yeah,
or something like that.
something like that. And
Yeah.
he was filmed like weighing in on what she should do for her live tour or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to your original question of what do I think of their relationship, first I will say I think he is a really supportive partner from what I have heard on her podcast on Call Her Daddy, as well as what I saw on the docuseries. Um, I honestly don't think I have any negative things to say about him or their relationship. Like it seemed very healthy. From what I can tell when she talks about him in her podcast, like he is very grounded, just like worships the ground she walks on, is so impressed with her and her ambition and doesn't try to tame her, in the untamed by Glennon Doyle way
Mm.
of the word. And just kind of loves when she's herself. And so I love that for her. I love that for them. Um, but yeah, I did not know that A, he worked for Call Her Daddy, B, he was married to Claire Holt before, or C, that he's 11 years older than her.
I did not know. I don't know who Claire Holt is until I clicked Claire Holt in his Wikipedia. Um, I did not. I also didn't know that he was that much older than her. Yeah, I guess like from the documentary, I was like, okay, yeah, he's obviously shown as some like supportive guy, but I guess in all of the reality shows, documentaries that we've watched, it's always like, okay, there's always some agenda. So I feel like this was another agenda that was like being pushed on the user, but
Yeah.
because I came in with the clean slate, I was like, I can only make judgments based on what is shown to me, so I guess I must accept that this is true.
Yeah. I think where I guess the history that I know about is that um when she does talk about Matt, so she talked a lot about this in her episode with Simone Biles because Simone Biles met her husband, oh God, I'm forgetting his name, Jonathan.
Okay, well, I know that they had a whole scandal about how he was like, was he joking about how
Jonathan
he,
Owens.
yeah, Jonathan
Oh
Owen.
yeah, so actually, okay, so yeah, side note, they do talk about that in Call Her Daddy on Simone Biles'
Oh,
episode,
okay.
and Alex is like, "What happened when like what was this?" And Simone was like, "Yeah, it was a joke and like I people are taking it the wrong way. They're taking it really seriously and like it was at first it felt like really supportive, but now it's kind of hurting my feelings that they don't respect our marriage anymore. So like please stop." And I was like,
Simone.
"Oh."
I also did watch Simone Biles' documentary, by the way. Ah, I loved that. It was so
Love
good. Love
her.
her.
Gosh. But anyway, yeah, so in that episode, in a few other episodes, the one with Rachel, who had just broken up with Matt James, they were a bachelor couple. Anyway, in all of these episodes, Alex talks a lot about how she and Matt started dating and like their relationship. And she said this in the docuseries too. She's like, I never thought I was gonna get married. I had pretty much accepted that I was just gonna like date people my whole life and like just kind of keep myself sexually satisfied, but like not really focus on finding a meaningful relationship. And so I think finding Matt despite that shows that like he did not hold her back in the way that she was afraid anyone or afraid that marriage would do.
Yeah.
And he just like he didn't try to quiet her, he didn't try to stomp on her dreams. He was just kind of there to support her and like so that they could support each other. And so yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of the impression I got. Yeah.
For sure. I think one thing that did come across very clearly without any kind of agenda attached to it was that it definitely seems like Alex is super, super hardworking. She's definitely super focused, very disciplined, very diligent. And I do think that comes with being a college athlete as well. And you could also kind of see that even in her younger years, she was like, I thrived in soccer because it gave me all of the structure and competition that I was yearning for, where I could just run free and like prove myself to me that I'm that bitch, you know?
Yes.
So I thought that was very
100%.
clear. And like, I think all of the other stories, I felt like something was being fed to me, but I think that was the one thing that really rang true. I was like, say what you want about Alex Cooper, feel how you feel, but you can't deny that she has earned this success.
I agree 100%. Yeah. I think that is very clear. She is, and I think another thing that's very clear from listening to her show for the last few years is that she is a hell of an interviewer.
Mm.
So many people on her podcast have been like, "You're so good at this. I literally have never talked about this before." And so she definitely has some sort of gift of or skill of kind of
Bringing
just
you in.
empathizing, yeah, bringing you in, empathizing on such a deep level. I feel like she always has a personal anecdote to share with her interviewee to make them feel more comfortable talking about what they're talking about. Like if they're like, "Oh yeah, I went through a huge glow up," she'll be like, "Dude, I went through 2 rounds of Accutane. Like I was hideous." You know, she'll
Yeah.
always say something like that. She just has a way of just relating to everyone she speaks to, and it's incredible. So yeah, I think definitely hardworking, definitely such a great interviewer. Um,
And she had an amazing glow up.
she did.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I did not know she was a redhead originally.
Yeah, that was crazy. But also, I feel like, well, I don't know if she got any work done. I don't know if you know.
I don't
But
know. I think she uses lip filler every
yeah,
now
I
and
think lip filler was there, yeah. But I think like for the most part, it still kind of looked like the same face. Like you could tell
then.
that the two people were like the same person.
Yeah,
It was very
definitely.
natural. If she got any work done, it was very natural.
Very natural. I do think she looks quite different without makeup. All of the shots they showed of her not wearing makeup, I was like, oh, yeah, she does look a little different. I guess because you could kind of see her redhead undertones of like some freckles and stuff versus like the kind of tan
Blonde,
blonde that we
tan.
see
Yeah.
mostly. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I also think that she's definitely a lot smarter than what I thought. Not to say that I thought she was dumb or anything, but I thought for the most part she was like, I don't know, kind of average and just like maybe lucked into things. But I
Mhm.
think over the course of the documentary, it's like, oh no, like every move that she makes is very calculated and has a goal or some kind of purpose in mind. And I think like some people may think that's manipulative, but I actually think it's very strategic. And I think she has a very strong strategic mind.
Yeah, definitely. That reminds me of something that Taylor Swift has said, which is when a man does it, it's strategic. When a woman does it, it's calculated. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's just she's just a smart businesswoman. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely no denying that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was even in the docuseries, there is an interview with Gail King where Gail King was like, no, Alex Cooper knows exactly what she's doing. So I
Was
think
Gail
even
King the head of Spotify or was she
no,
not one of them?
she's like a really famous TV personality. Yeah, TV newscaster. Yes. CBS News.
Oh. Oh, that lady. Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's right.
So yeah, even she was like, Alex Cooper knows exactly what she's doing. And even Alex Cooper was like, yeah, when we first started out, like this was the picture for Call Her Daddy, and it was like her and Sophia kind of looking like blow up dolls, like very sexual. And
Yes.
so she was like, yeah, I obviously posed like that and like edited things a little bit more than they needed to be because I was going for a very certain allure, which worked.
Yeah. So smart.
Yeah. Speaking of the locker room talk, the Gluck Gluck 9000.
Legend. That is a Color Daddy legend.
Actually, when they started talking about that, that was when I was like, maybe I should listen to this podcast.
Dude, I know. I'm like, okay, I can see why this podcast was so successful. Because, yeah, when else do we talk about it? I guess like our friends talk about a lot of stuff. I don't think we have very many boundaries, but
That's
I'm
true,
sure
yeah.
there are so many women out there who don't have that kind of friendship where they can just like literally talk about this straightforwardly.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I only have that relationship like with very few people in my life, which is like our friend group.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see other close friendships where I would not be comfortable having that conversation. So while I don't have that boundary with some people, I definitely have that boundary with a lot of other people.
Thousand
So
percent.
yeah, exactly. And so like to have it being discussed on a podcast, it was groundbreaking.
Yeah, totally. And I thought it was so interesting. I guess my mind, whenever there's a celebrity that kind of capitalizes on sexuality or like swearing a lot or anything that's viewed as not appropriate, quote unquote,
Mhm.
um, I'm always like, I wonder what their parents think. And I've thought that a lot
Yes.
with Alex's start when I think back to the original Call Her Daddy. I'm like, I wonder what her parents think about this or how they felt during this. And I was so surprised that they were just like, yeah, we loved it.
Yeah. And even her mom was like, and you know what? Not only do I love it, my mom would love it. I was like, dang, what a family.
Grandma, welcome to Call Her Daddy.
My dad told me that I shouldn't wear my jumpsuit because my jumpsuit is basically just like a strap thing because my shoulders were showing basically.
Yeah, yeah, there are the Coopers, Mama and Papa Cooper, and then there are Indian parents. My dad once in middle school, I was wearing purple sweatpants, literally sweatpants, but I had rolled them up to just under my knees as we did in the 2000s. And my dad was like, "You're showing too much skin. You're giving boys too many ideas." And I was like,
What?
"What?"
Crazy. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Oh yeah, well, one more story about Indian parents. I also remember the first time that my sister wore like torn jeans in front of my parents, my dad made her change. He was like, "You cannot go out with torn jeans. I will not allow you to go out with torn jeans." And she was like, "Baba, this is the fashion." And he was like, "Absolutely not. I did not grow up in poverty for my kid to have torn jeans."
oh my God. Yeah, so classic. So many fashion fights with my dad. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Policing women.
Policing women. Would they have said that to a boy rolling his sweatpants up? Definitely
Probably
not.
not. Ugh.
Anyway.
Anyway, what are we talking about? Okay, yeah, okay. Speaking of inappropriate, should we talk about the sexual misconduct by her coach
Oh
at Boston
yeah, that was
University?
so crazy.
I did not know about that at all. So that started that was like teed up in the second half of the first episode, I believe, right? And then it kind of
Yeah.
continued into the second episode.
I think it all resolved in the first
In the
episode
first one.
because
Oh,
at
okay.
the I remember the first episode ending with her walking onto the field for the first time since college and being like, I knew that no one would ever silence me again. And then it cuts.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, yeah. So, okay, so basically the second half of the first episode is all about the sexual misconduct. And the first half of the first episode is all about her preparing for her tour. I was like, this is going in a wild direction. Like I thought this would be about how Alex Cooper is just like really good at soccer. And then she was like, oh, Division 1 soccer. And then she decided to throw it all away and start a podcast. But it's like, no, this was taken from her.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was spoiled for that a little bit because I think I'd seen a headline or something that was like Alex speaks out about the sexual misconduct by her soccer coach. So I kind of knew it was coming, but yeah, I think it was shocking to me that it happened in the first place. Double shocking that it was a woman and
Yeah.
apparently she said recently after the doc came out that she didn't feel comfortable speaking up about it because it was a woman. And so, like, it wasn't on her
Oh.
brand of fighting the patriarchy to speak out about a woman. And so she didn't feel comfortable until now. It is time for a little oopsie doopsie. So, Alex released a really short 8-minute episode on Call Her Daddy this past Tuesday, the day that her docuseries came out, June 10th, titled My College Soccer Trauma. And in this, she doesn't detail any of the trauma itself, but she uses this episode to explain the choice of including this traumatic thing that happened to her in her docuseries. So if you haven't listened to it, I just wanted to give a brief summary of it because I felt it was important to include here. And you are more than welcome to go listen to it yourself. But TLDR is that she initially wanted to just make a fun documentary about the chaotic behind the scenes of her Unwell tour. She was not planning to include any of the soccer trauma at all, but the director of her docuseries encouraged her to just go to BU, visit the soccer field, and the minute she did, she said she felt so small and powerless, and she forgot about her status, her money, etc. And she just started bawling and realized that there was so much that was unresolved for her. And the reason she's never spoken up about it is because she felt so much shame that her abuser was a woman, and she was afraid that it would undermine the brand that she had built for herself all around empowering women. Then she found out this year that other women had experienced the same trauma from the same coach. It was still actively happening on the BU campus in 2025. And she spoke directly with one of the victims. So that's when she made the decision. She was like, I must use my platform to speak out. And so that is why she decided to include this trauma. Also why she hasn't spoken about it in the past. So yeah, just wanted to include that little tidbit for you. Definitely go listen to it yourself. It's only 8 minutes long. It's on Call Her Daddy from June 10th. All right, back to the episode.
Oh my gosh, what a tough situation because she also chose that team because the coach was a woman and then in order to avoid sexual misconduct and then ended up having sexual misconduct.
Just so heartbreaking. And as a former student athlete myself, just like knowing how much you pour into your sport and just want to do a good job, and your coach does have so much power over you because, you know, they're the authority when it comes to how you do, especially in a sport like soccer. I played water polo. Like they, you know, in swimming or in track or whatever, it's like you're gonna run your race, you're gonna swim your race. But in soccer and water polo, it's like the coach decides how much you play of that sport every single game that you play. And so the coach just had so much power over her. I can't believe the coach could control who she lived with, how
Yeah.
many games she played, basically her future chances of success.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
also thought it was crazy about how long this went on because when they started talking about it, it was like, oh, she noticed something happening her freshman year, then some more stuff happened her sophomore year, then things escalated into her junior year, and it was like, oh my God, I like you know where that's going as the viewer, but to know that it went on for 3 years is insane. And then I also wanted to say, oh yeah, so while I was looking this up, while I was looking up the intro for this episode, I saw that there was some activity where Boston University is finally kind of like speaking out now that the docu-series has been out for a week. But of course, they're just like denying everything. They're like, we always support our athletes and we would never do put our student athletes in a position of like doing blah blah blah, you know. So there's been a lot of people who are, I think, representatives or Boston University or
Mm.
still work there or were there at the time, and they've all kind of come out and denied that this was happening. Just kind of interesting.
Yeah, of course they are. I think they have no other option other than to try to deny, you know,
Yeah.
but
Or
like,
maybe they're not even denying, but they're just being like, we always support our team. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
you're not saying that it didn't happen.
Right. What the heck? Fuck
Yeah,
off.
yeah. So it was like a non-answer, basically.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Okay, one thing that confused me was that you know how her mom said it took a while to figure out that there was a personal issue with the coach. It took almost another year to realize that there was a sexual component to the personal issue. But then they also say that Alex's mom had written down every single thing that Alex had told her chronologically over the years. So, do you think she just happened to be writing the stuff down before she knew that there was such a big issue? Or do you think she, like, went back and wrote some things that she remembered of
I'm
what
sure
she'd
it
been
wasn't
told?
like from the very first time that Alex talked about her coach, she was writing stuff down. I think it may have started with, oh, like the coach did this weird thing today. And then, oh, this coach did another weird thing today. Then the third time it happens, like, this coach did another weird thing today. And I think by the third data point, you're like, I need to start writing this down just in case. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think at that point, they probably thought that it was more of a personal vendetta. And so they just wanted evidence to support that personal vendetta. But then they realized that it was an like an intimate, sexual, personal, not
Yeah.
really vendetta, but like interest in Alex.
Wow. Yeah.
I guess like the other thing that confused me is I've watched this scene like multiple times because I was kind of confused, but I think what happened is that there was some brown-haired girl that said that the coach dismissed her and just said, "Oh, you're off the team. It's like non-negotiable. No questions, whatever," and just like kicked her
Mhm.
off. But then, wait, was her name also Alex? Because
Yeah, both of their names were Alex.
okay, I was confused by that. But then it also was confused because the coach basically kicked not Alex Cooper off the team, but the other Alex because of her relationship with Alex Cooper. Is that right?
That's certainly the story they were trying to tell with that. They definitely were trying to show that she kicked off other Alex to control Alex Cooper's life as much as possible and to send her a message of, look what I did to your friend, just so you know, I can control everything. I'll control who you live with, I'll control how much soccer you play, I control your future, etc. So that's definitely what they were trying to say with that. I think I don't know. Maybe there was another reason she was kicked off. I don't know. I mean, I don't think other Alex did anything wrong to deserve being kicked off, but who knows
Yeah.
with this crazy woman? Maybe she got mad at other Alex for some reason also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. I guess like that part wasn't clear to me. And then Alex Cooper is filmed saying, "Oh, whenever someone is kicked off the team with no questions, but then they keep their scholarship, that is always a huge red flag." Um, but then it didn't happen to Alex Cooper, or it did happen to Alex Cooper, where the same thing happened, or
I
no?
think it did happen to Alex Cooper where it sounds like she did not play soccer her senior year, but kept
Right.
the scholarship. But just she was like, I refuse to play for this woman. And they were
Okay.
like, okay, that's your choice. You can keep your scholarship, but that's your choice.
Okay, right. Because
Yeah.
then she had a conversation with the administration, and then the administration was like, "What do you want? Because we're not going to fire her."
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Oh, that sucks. Because soccer was like her whole life, and then she was like, "What am I
I
even doing my
know.
senior year?" Do you think
Yeah.
Alex Cooper would have played for the Olympics, like the women's national team, if she continued soccer?
Maybe. Who knows? Yeah, I also couldn't tell. Obviously, she was a rock star at soccer growing up and stuff, but then I couldn't tell if she was the star also in BU because I saw something flash up that was like it was her first Division 1 goal or something when she scored that goal. I was like, "Oh, maybe she wasn't the standout on the BU team." But that's just because the team is made up of all standouts. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, hard to
yeah.
tell.
But who knows? I mean, it sounds like she wasn't really setting herself up for any other sort of career because,
Right.
she was saying, like, after I got kicked out, I didn't have anything. I hadn't worked at any internships over the summer. Like, I didn't have any job prospects lined up. And so that to me, felt like she was planning to go pro at some point. That's
Yeah.
something I could think of.
Yeah, that's kind of how I interpreted it too. But yes, same thing with you. I was like, I feel like there were only 2 clips that were shown to us of her actually playing soccer, and she looked decent. But also, I'm not a soccer player, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
Great.
Well,
She would have been the next Megan Rapinoe.
maybe. We'll never know. But now she's Alex Cooper, host of Call Her Daddy,
That's true.
CEO of Unwell. Is she the CEO? I think so.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. One thing that I saw is that some of the Alex Cooper haters are basically saying that Alex is the daughter of a producer. So, of course, she got all of this fame and success because she's a Nepo baby, kind of. I don't
She's
know.
a hockey producer.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like, I
He's
don't.
not in media.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, it's not like he's an HBO executive like Sophia's boyfriend.
Yeah, what? People just want a reason to be upset. I think what is clear is that she had a very stable childhood with a very loving family. I
Yes.
think that is fair to say, and definitely no hate. I mean, she can't help her background, and
Yeah.
she's very good at what she does. So why are people complaining?
I think people just want to be haters, honestly, at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Makes sense. Me too, sometimes. I can be a hater. It's
One thing
in me.
about me.
I got that dog in me.
But speaking of her childhood, so the first half of episode 1 was kind of all about how she was bullied as a child and that drove her into her creative pursuits. And then the second half was obviously about soccer. But okay, what did you think of that kind of story arc of her being bullied as a kid?
Okay, well, knowing nothing about her at that point, I was like, oh, okay, is that why she's overcompensating by like being super sexual? Because she didn't get that attention from boys when she was super young, and so that's why when she like hit puberty and beyond, she wanted to be like super sexual so that she did get that attention. That's kind of how I interpreted it.
Oh, I love that psychoanalysis. I think that's so
Isn't it?
possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
I
you
like
always
that
want
theory.
what you can't have, right? And so like when you didn't
Totally.
have something in your childhood, you like really overcompensate it in your adulthood.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I love that. I think my takeaway from that was like, this girl is grasping at straws for a hard backstory, like a difficult backstory. I was like, oh, you were skinny? You were a redhead?
Okay, yeah, I did think that.
Ooh, you know, a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Try bringing curry pakora to your to lunch to school, then see what happens.
Try dressing like your Indian dad didn't let you wear rolled sweatpants to school.
Try putting coconut oil in your hair and not washing it out and go to school. Then see what people say about your red hair, Alex Cooper.
Try being the only one on swim team that was forced to wear a giant rash guard t-shirt to swim practice because your mother was the only one that was worried about melanoma.
Wait, that reminds me, in my middle school gym class, actually, when I was in middle school, I actually didn't like wearing shorts for some reason. I don't know why, I just didn't. But in gym class, everyone had a gym uniform, and you had to wear shorts, and you had to wear a shirt. And the first day of gym class, the coach or the like PE teacher is kind of just like going through the rules, and she's like, "You have to wear your gym clothes outfit every single day. That means the shorts and the shirt." And then she looked at me and she was like, "You can wear long pants if you need to." And then I was like, great. Now looking back on it, I was like, oh shit, she profiled me.
Did she know that you didn't like wearing shorts? What
I
made her
think
say
so.
this? She's
I
like,
think
this girl's thighs are ugly.
no, I think she just assumed I was Muslim or something.
Oh, damn, teacher, what the fuck?
This was also Florida, so I never wore shorts to school in Florida. So this is
Yeah.
probably also another signal.
Okay. That does make more sense. That context of like, oh, okay, this girl never wears shorts, even though everyone else is. She probably doesn't want to wear shorts, even if
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it's a family thing or whatever. Yeah,
I'm
that's so funny though. She's like, not you though.
yeah. I still don't know. I don't even remember why I didn't like shorts. Honestly, I don't think I liked the gym shorts because I felt like they were too big for me. So I think they were just gonna like they didn't have a small enough size. I was bug.
Oh, baby Ruchi.
Yeah.
Yappers, you can't tell through this camera, but how tall
I'm
are you,
6 foot
Ruchi?
tall.
Oh,
Call me daddy.
oh, I think another thing that's very clear when we were saying like undeniable that she's a great businesswoman, undeniable she's a great interviewer. I think undeniable that she is such a girl's girl if her day one best friends are still her best friends.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with you.
It was
Wait.
so sweet that Lauren is still like Lauren's still working with her.
Yeah, so true. But I think that makes sense, especially like if she's on a soccer team of women and she likes that because they're all women and they're all supporting each other, then I think it makes sense that she's like that much of a girl's girl.
Yeah. A
Oh,
lot of criticism I've seen of her is that people are like, "Oh, she's such a mean girl in real life." And I just don't believe that. Like, she doesn't seem like a mean
mm,
girl. I think it's fair if people like find her annoying because of how she speaks or like what her content is, but I don't think they can say she's a mean girl. She has her
mm.
best friends from day one by her side still.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think there's two ways of thinking about this. I think one is I felt like that was an agenda in the docuseries of Alex Cooper is not a mean girl. She's actually really compassionate and nice. Believe us. And then I was like, okay. And then the second thing, like I feel like the docuseries really went out of their way to show that she was kind. Like
Oh,
that.
like the example of the girl coming up on stage and talking about her dad's cancer. Yeah, I was like,
Yes.
wow, they strategically chose this clip to show.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, but the second thing is that even Alex herself is like, at the very beginning of episode one, where I think that guy is trying to leave, or like things aren't falling into place as quickly as they should have. And she's like, I don't know how to tell people that this is not where we need to be 1 week before our show starts. Because if I say anything bad, people are going to go around and be like, oh, Alex Cooper is a bitch. But if any other man in my position said that, they would be like, oh, he's a boss. He's great to work with. So I think there is an element of truth there. So who knows if the people that are saying that Alex Cooper is mean are just haters or have never seen a woman in a position of power and influence before, and that's why they are saying, oh, she's aggressive because she's asking for what she wants.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that's a really good point that the people that are saying she's a mean girl would not say the same thing about a man that acted that way. Yeah, so valid. Yeah, I'm glad they showed that clip though, because I think it really showed what goes through her mind. I think of her as this really strong, very decisive, visionary businesswoman that just like executes on her vision. But I liked seeing that side of her where she's like agonizing about how to say something
Yeah.
and like worrying how she's coming off. Cause I never see that side of her. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it was very humanizing. And I was like, wow, I feel that way in so many situations in my life.
Yeah. And then I also think that like leadership type pep talk that she did with the whole group, I actually did find that really inspiring. I was like, you know what? She is a great leader
Yeah.
and visionary. So yeah, undeniable. Even though
Yeah.
there was an agenda, it was a believable agenda.
It was believable. And I found it really inspiring how she talked to the guy that was trying to quit
Yeah.
when she was like, "Dude, like I cannot do this without you, but that's my name up there. So if I need to go talk to someone, like tell me who I need to fucking yell at cuz I will do it." Like like it
Yeah.
was kind of empowering herself and also empathizing with him at the same time. I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
that's so cool how she did that." And she just turned it around and then he was like, it's very hard to say no to Alex Cooper.
One scene that I liked with John, like John's issue or the reason that he was walking away from the show was he felt super stressed out. It was a lot of work for him. He was basically the sole person in charge of everything. And that was also the reason why he couldn't go, but also the reason why he didn't want to stay. And I think after Alex and John had that conversation, they like walked away from each other. And then someone was like, does anyone know where John is? Like, I'm trying to find the tape. And then Alex was like, don't ask John. Ask me. I will tell you. I felt like that was a very, yes, strong leader
Strong-ass
vibe.
leader.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was
for her
like,
to like not just delegate relentlessly, but like be like, okay, there is an
protect
issue
him.
here.
Yeah.
My main goal is to get to the finish line, and if that means I have to do someone's grunt work, I will do it.
Yeah.
What a great leader.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Or like the reason why John is crumbling under the pressure is because he's the central node to this entire operation. So if I have to be the central node for this entire operation so that John can get a break, I'm gonna do that. I was like, dang,
Yeah.
that's great leadership.
Yeah, for Alex Cooper, the star of the show, to be going to look for an old tape, I was like, damn,
Yeah.
like that. It's humble and so just so humble. Who
Yeah.
would? Yeah, I cannot imagine. I don't. Well, we can't really compare her to anyone, but who's a man that wouldn't do that? I think most of them. For some
Yeah,
reason, Elon Musk comes to mind. Like, do you think if there was a guy who was feeling burnt out, Elon Musk was like, "Let me take on some of your tasks for you"?
absolutely
No
not.
way. No
Absolutely not.
way.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only note that I have left is when they showed Call Her Daddy kind of going up and down the rankings, my favorite murder was there. I was like, oh, it's now third. My favorite murder was my intro to podcasts. So
Me
it holds a
too.
special place in my heart. Oh yeah. Yeah, so I guess overall thoughts from the docu-series. There were definitely many agendas. Which was part of the reason why Alex Cooper probably had a docuseries to begin with. There was like 4 main points that were hit with like episode 1, part 1, episode 1, like second half, episode 2, first half, whatever. But we definitely did see some undeniable truths about Alex Cooper, the person. So it was kind of good to see that intro. I still don't know if I would listen to the podcast itself unless there was a celebrity guest that I really have a strong affinity to. So Simone Biles, for example, the Kamala Harris interview. We didn't really talk about that, but that's
Oh yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I did. I listened to that episode when it came out. But I would say my main takeaway from that was like, I don't think I needed to listen to this. Like there wasn't very much, but I don't think that's on Alex. I think that's just on just the type of content that Kamala was putting out at that time in the election. I was like, this didn't really add anything. Like all they talked about was stuff that we already knew. I think maybe what would have been more productive was to like hear about Kamala's backstory a little bit more, but instead it was mostly about policy and her views on things, which is like, we know this, you know?
That is interesting. Well, one thing that Alex did talk about in the docu-series is, oh, I know that Daddy Gang is bipartisan. There's Republicans and there's Democrats. And so I don't know how bringing Kamala onto the show will kind of affect that because she's tried to keep it apolitical intentionally. And by bringing Kamala on, it was kind of like, this is might be thought of as a political stance when it really was just more of women supporting women, it felt. But
Yeah.
that's surprising then that the episode itself was about her policies and not her as a person.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I mean, the policies were all around women's body. It was mostly about abortion, with a little bit about like, what would you say to women in this position or like women who are trying to hold positions of power and stuff like that. It was very short. It was 45 minutes long, I think. That was the whole interview.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the episode, she did an intro by herself, Alex did, and it basically explained like I've kept this podcast really apolitical. I am not qualified to be asking Kamala Harris stuff about foreign policy, stuff about the environment, blah, blah, blah. What I am qualified to talk about is women's bodies. And we have told the Trump campaign if Donald Trump wants to come on and speak about women's bodies, he is welcome on Call Her Daddy anytime. So she said that from the beginning, I think in an effort to be like, I'm not choosing, I like this podcast is not choosing a side. This podcast wants to talk about women's bodies, and whoever wants to come on and talk about that is welcome to. So I thought that was a really interesting intro to that episode.
That is interesting, but I guess now this is more of a political conversation because I feel like you can't be apolitical anymore, to be honest. And I think someone with as much power and influence as Alex Cooper should be, especially when it comes to how she is such a women's rights supporter. She's made her stance on abortion very clear, but she continues to get her podcast to be apolitical, which I think is an interesting choice. A strategic choice, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I guess maybe the way I phrased it was wrong. I think her intro to the podcast was kind of meant as like a, hey, look, we're giving both sides an opportunity. This is the side that has decided to take up that opportunity. And so like, I think she wanted to, by saying that, she wanted to avoid people being like, she's pushing Harris on us or something, or like, they're like pushing left-wing agendas or liberal agendas. And she wanted to make it clear that like, I'm not pushing anything. We have invited him onto the podcast. So I guess that. But I totally agree with your point that when you have a platform that big, at a time like this where human rights are being taken away, anyone with a platform that big should be speaking out about it. And so I'm really glad she did.
Okay. What are your overall thoughts?
As a Call Her Daddy fan, I did like the insight into her life and her childhood and her college years, and I think it helped piece together a lot of what I knew about her life already, which I liked. Like, I'd heard a lot about her BU years, and being a student athlete and kind of her lifestyle, and then had heard about like her awkward teen years, going through Accutane and stuff. And so it was fun to kind of piece those all together in one clear picture. And I'd always wanted to know what happened with her co-host, and I felt like, well, obviously they told a biased view of it, but it was a good insight into also just like how Call Her Daddy started and the story behind it, which I'd never really spent the time to look into. So yeah, I enjoyed a lot of things about it in that respect. I still think like they didn't have to try so hard to come up with a harrowing backstory for her as a child. I think they could have very well just stuck to like, I was a competitive athlete from day one, and I've stayed competitive and I know what I want and I go for it without like trying to create a sob story around it. But that didn't take away from my enjoyment of it, really. So yeah, I liked it.
What would you rate it?
I think I would rate it an 8 out of 10. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I mean, I guess I'm probably biased because I already was an Alex Cooper fan.
Yeah.
And so this just kind of enhanced it for me. Yeah, I just love learning more about celebrities I already love. But yeah, 8 out of 10.
Wow.
What
I
about
guess
you?
I am a hater because I was gonna say this is like a 6 out of 10 for me.
Oh, that's not that bad. I thought you were gonna say like 4.
No. Yeah, I think it was I think it was a good story. Like I said before, I feel like I always feel an aversion when someone is like, this is what you should believe. And I'm like, I have no other data points. So I felt a little uncomfortable by that agenda that was being pushed on me, without even having any affinity towards Alex Cooper or like having watched any of the episodes. I do have a respect for Alex Cooper though, so I think that much my perspective was able to shift a little bit. But yeah, I think a 6 out of 10. I think yeah, it was fine. I just didn't like being told what to think.
Yeah, that's so fair. That reminds me of how anytime there's a true crime documentary, I always look up who produced it, like the defendant or the victim. Because I'm like, whose side of the story are they trying to tell right now? Literally there have been so many Jean-Benet Ramsey documentaries, and I'm like, is this when we find out all the other stuff? But it's always produced by the Ramsey family, and I'm like, guys,
Oh.
stop! I'm not gonna
Wait,
watch another Ramsey produced documentary.
I did see a John Benet Ramsey documentary on Netflix that came out maybe like 6 months ago or last year. That was produced by the Ramsey family.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting because my takeaway from that documentary is that they definitely did it.
That's so funny. Okay, to be fair, I did not watch that one because I'd watched the previous one that had come out, maybe on Hulu. It was like a docu-series or something. And then I watched the whole thing, and then I was talking about it with Jing, and she was like, that was produced by the Ramsey family. And I was like, God dang it! But I
Whoa.
definitely, yeah, I mean, we don't have to get into this on this podcast, but I think
This
the
can be our binge in progress.
Ram-
Wait, sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
I think the Ramseys did it.
I think so too. I'm not gonna whisper it.
It was the brother.
Yeah.
It up.
It was, you think it was the brother, it was an accident by the brother and then the parents covered it up, right? Yeah, that's what I think too. Yeah, but we can just say it out loud. I don't know why we're whispering. Should we actually do
Well,
some binge in progress?
sure.
I started watching this show called Tires on Netflix.
Wait, what is the show about?
It's about this failing mechanic shop. It's a very loose premise that this guy basically, um, I think his dad owns the mechanic chain stores and he's managing one individual store. And in an attempt to like make this store be successful, he bought like so many tires because he got them on discount. But now he's stuck with the failing store and he's like thousands of dollars in debt with this store. And
No.
basically, any scheme that they try to like get more people to come to their store always backfires in some like stupid way. It's very like dumb man humor, but it has some moments.
All right, nice.
Yeah. Shout out to boyfriend Andrew, who originally started watching it and then told me about it. And I was like, that show looks stupid. I'm not gonna watch it. And then Netflix on like the on Netflix on Instagram like kept posting reels from it. And I was like, maybe I'll give it a try. And then I had a 5 hour plane ride with nothing else to watch. So I watched a couple episodes from season one.
Hmm, nice. The reason I gasped when you said tires was I, for some reason, thought you were referencing the movie from like 2011 called Rubber.
Oh, yes, with the
That
wheel.
was about a tire.
Yes, with like an evil tire, right?
Yeah, it was like the main character was a tire.
I think when you watch that in college, you told me about it, and I was like, why would anyone watch that?
I didn't watch it, but Nico
Go.
and Jing watched it and
Yes.
kept talking about it and trying to get everyone else to watch it. And
Yes.
I had
Okay.
the same reaction as you. I was like, that sounds so boring.
Okay. I thought you had watched it, but okay. We have succeeded. We still haven't seen it.
Still haven't seen it.
Great. What
Um,
are you watching?
I yesterday evening started the Oceangate documentary on Netflix, called Titan, the
Mhm.
Oceangate something. And I've watched about, I would say, 45 minutes of it. So far, it's nothing that I didn't already know from watching so many TikToks about it when it was happening. Basically, the story they've showed so far is that the CEO, Stockton, what is his name?
Let's call him John.
No, his first name's Stockton. I just forgot his last name.
Let's say Stockton.
He was he was smart but very arrogant, very charismatic, knew how to talk to people so that they would believe everything he says. Very akin to, like all of the charismatic assholes that have been in charge of something they shouldn't have been in charge of that we know. And scientists warned him that things might go wrong, and he like pushed the schedule and tried to cut corners. Um, and yeah, so that's as far as I've gotten so far. but
And tried
I
to
think we don't
navigate
know
a
where
sub
it's
using
going.
like a GameCube joystick.
Oh yeah, what's the Sony one? Oh, PlayStation. I think it was a PlayStation controller. Yeah. I was like, this dude is just trying to flex. Like, God, so annoying.
That was the wildest part when that came out. They're like, oh yeah, also he's using a PlayStation controller. Everyone was like, what?
Yeah.
Ugh.
But I was telling you about this morning where I think it does when it happened, and I think the documentary is trying to do this as well. It sparks an interesting commentary on how the public views tragedies when it happens to rich people. There were so many, joke reels about like that people were just making such light of it, because it was billionaires, and they're like, yeah, eat the rich basically, and just not really, I don't know, they dehumanized it to a point. So I think it's an interesting, just in general, not the documentary, but this event that happened was, I don't know, made me think about death and humanity and empathy.
Mm. Yeah, it's hard to
Ruki
feel
the hater.
I so am. You knew immediately what I was gonna
Yeah,
say. I
you're
was
like,
like, you know what? All I'm saying is that none of us could even afford to think about getting on a private submarine. So, but yeah, I know what you mean. I think what you're trying to say is that you are kinder than I am, and a life is a life.
my point
And
is, you're a bitch and I'm a great person.
point taken. Free Luigi. Oh yeah, I also finished Straw, the Tyler Perry movie. I need to talk about that ending.
Ooh. Ooh,
I'll
yappers,
leave
if
it at
you've
that.
watched Straw, write in and let us know what you thought of the ending.
Please DM us. I'm dying to talk about it.
Or email us at hello@bingeyapperpete.com.
Hello.
At bingeyapperpete.com. Thanks for yapping with us. If you loved this episode, have some hot takes we missed, or if you've got a show you're dying for us to binge next, follow us on socials. We're at Binge Yapper Pete.
Until next time, happy binging!